Hello everybody and welcome back to my Dwarf Fortress Beginner Let's Play series. This is part 2, where we're going to be continuing our basic farming and try and get some, bedrooms made and constructed and try and get a functional kitchen done. Alongside of all of this, we're also going to try and get a tavern built, maybe see some visitors, or alternatively boot them out because we're scared of them. And probably by the end of it, or maybe the next episode, we'll try and tackle some trading. It's a lot to kind of try and get done, but we'll see how much of it we can get done. So we're going to dive into our active game, which is this one right here, the Enchanted Dimension. And we have blockade bolted, or blocked bolted. I think I keep misreading that as blockade bolted. Anyway, we're diving in. So as the game loads in the background, I'll remind you that we just gotten farming up and running. So our goal for this episode is to kind of move forward with farming and get a food stockpile built and also get a kitchen built. But it's also important to get a couple bedrooms. We have already dug down a little bit and we've dug down into stone, which is where I would like to put our bedrooms. So the first thing we're going to do once this loading finishes is we're going to make some beds. Now, we have this lovely little dwarf here who is working, who is named Solon, and if we select him, we can see that he is a dabbling carpenter and actually is quite happy with his job. He's been satisfied at work and felt fondness when speaking with a friend. So we're going to try and get some bedrooms set up. That's going to be our next goal, because we do have a repeating job for brewing right here. We do have dwarves planting plump helmets. We have a seed stockpile already, and we're going to add a new job. Now, beds are only able to be made out of wood at the carpenter's shop, with the exception of some rare circumstances. And once these barrels that we've queued up for this dwarf are finished, we're going to set up a repeating job for beds. We're just going to need to remember to turn that off soonish. So, while that works and gets its stuff going, we're going to scroll down by pulling the mouse wheel towards us till we get to the bottom of our little stairwell here. Now, I'm just going to kind of dig out a little space for us and give our dwarves a little bit of moving room so that we can, make something of interest inside of here. And, I like my circles personally. Feel free to make these any shape that you like. That portion doesn't really matter all that much, but we're going to need kind of a nice little central room. And then next to this central room, since we're kind of in the middle of the map, as you can see, and we have tons of working space, we're going to build a little hallway. And off of this little hallway, we're going to widen this little hallway. And I think I'm probably going to put some doors right here. So we are going to jump over here into the eraser tool and remove one of those. This is just plain and normal digging, nothing fancy. So we're going to unpause the game now, and our miner is going to go grab a pick. Oh, look at that. It started raining. Dwarves aren't a huge fan of rain. What a shame. Now, our miner is going to hopefully go dig. Look at him there. Salom, our miner. Something else that I haven't done at all is we have this expedition leader here. This is 70 years old. And, he is disdains harmony, values independence, and has low willpower and is agile. Doesn't like harmony, really. Let's take a look at his thoughts. He's currently annoyed after being caught in the rain, and according to his personality, he has a good kinesthetic sense. So, it is raining. Some things like the rain, like our livestock, for example. But our dwarves don't like the rain. So I think we're going to jump over to the other side of this shallow brook over here and get our animals pastured and then get our dwarves inside, which is very important. I'm going to close this zones tutorial real quick, and we're going to click on this button down here. Now, this is the zones tool that I just had opened, or you can open it by pressing Z on the keyboard. So we're just going to click that, and we're going to go over here to a pen and pasture. Now, animals like horses, guinea pig sows, and various other forms of livestock need to graze. And now, unfortunately, they're not super smart, so they won't do this by themselves. You need to assign them to a grazing zone. So we've made this pasture over here in the background, rather large spot, and we've accepted the size and shape. Of course, we can repaint and add to it if we click on this button. We can also suspend it temporarily or delete the zone entirely if we decide we don't like it. We're going to select this button, which adds animals to this zone. Now, dogs do not need to be kept in this zone in order to train. And our hunting dog is actually going to go off and start hunting for us. Cats also don't need to be penned here, and neither does this duck. But I'm going to put the duck in there anyway. We're going to then go down the list of animals that need to graze, which are like your alpacas, your sheep, stuff like that. The peacock also doesn't need to be in there, but we'll put them there anyway. And now that they're all assigned, the dwarves are, once they're finished doing other tasks, they're going to lead our livestock over there. Now let's give the dwarves an inside area to kind of begin to exist in. Well, Isn't quite enough space down here just yet. Let's actually increase the priority for part of this mining area and just say, hey, dude, mine out this back area first so that we can set that as our meeting zone. So meeting zone, by default, is the wagon, where the wagon spawns. It's where all of your dwarves are going to congregate, right? Something I'm actually kind of curious about is how many weapons did they embark us with? Let's just take a real quick, actually I could just search, pick specifically. All right, looks like we have extra picks. So we're going to open up the units screen down here, and we are going to go over to labor and miners. So we have some default job profiles here, and this is everything that you really need to run a fortress. I'm going to add a couple extra dwarves to mining. As you can see, we already have a woodcutter here assigned, and we also have a fisher dwarf here assigned. I'm going to give our expedition leader here mining, just to kind of speed up the whole process of getting mining done. So now those extra dwarves are once they're finished planting seeds and doing other tasks, are going to go grab picks, and then they're going to help us mine, which is going to be very useful. They're still planting seeds, and that's going to take a little bit though. So, game's unpaused, and as you can see, they're now going to go pick up equipment, which is grabbing this pickaxe, this little dwarf right here, and then is going to run the way down and dig. It's going to help us get these areas dug out. So, once this area is done being dug out, we're going to assign this as our first meeting zone. And like I said, meeting zones are used for a variety of things. They can later be turned into temples and taverns, as well as various other forms of meeting. It's quite important to make a tavern and temple pretty early on, as it's the only way that dwarves can socialize. So we're actually going to make this first meeting zone into a tavern right away. But we're going to make sure that no visitors show up. We're not going to open it for business. And we're also going to just set it up as the most bare basic minimum. So we're going to click on the zone tool down here. We are going to click on meeting area, and we're going to click and drag for this little square. So now you can see it's all highlighted. We can change the size of it if we want, or we can just accept it, which is what we're going to do. And then we are going to click on this little plus button here with this shield next to it. Assign a new or existing location to this zone. Locations are groups of zones and rooms with a larger purpose, like a tavern, a temple, or a library, or a guild hall. We're going to make this into an inn/tavern, and it gives it a name. So it's now called Unnamed Meeting Hall. We're going to call this zone Tavern, just for my own sanity. And it's called the Helm Spice, a fine name for a dwarven tavern. We are now going to click on Details for this assigned location. And as you can see, there are 3 buttons right here. All visitors welcome, citizens and long-term residents only, and citizens only. We're going to set it to the second one. I don't really want every single mercenary, their mother, and their dog's best friend showing up and drinking all of my alcohol. That would be a little annoying. So we're just going to make sure that that doesn't happen. So now our dwarves have a location, a very basic location. We can set how many goblets and mugs and things we want stored in here later. I will cover that when we get to it, when we build an actual tavern. But this is just our first meeting zone and place where all of our dogs and dwarves are going to kind of hang out in their downtime. As soon as possible as well, we're also going to give them chairs eventually, as well as some beds. So, speaking of beds, remember what we did back at the beginning? We assigned a bunch of beds to be constructed here. So I'm actually kind of curious. How many are there? A good number, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got about 5 beds, which is plenty to make a dormitory, the next thing that we're going to do. We're going to slide back down here, and I'm going to hit the build button, and then we are going to go to furniture. Now, there's a couple different furniture items here that you'll see immediately. Keep in mind, these can't be constructed unless they've been made in a location already. So they need to be made in a workshop before they can be constructed. Some of them require multiple pieces of materials and such in order to be constructed. So we're going to place these beds down. So now, by default, it gives you this menu. And you can select a bed to place, and then it boots you back to this menu. If I use select closest material, we don't have to be specific about which type of bed or what material of bed you're placing. This is important if you want your fortress to be color coordinated and look very aesthetically pleasing, shall we say. But by default, it just remembers the last setting we used, so we're just going to say use closest material, so I can just do this, and that's plenty. Now, we're going to make another zone, and we're just going to click the dormitory default. So if it's a dormitory, dwarves will just sleep here. So now we have a dormitory and a little tavern. And over time, over the next little bit, actually if we check this screen, the unit screen also can be found down here, you'll pretty quickly see dwarves constructing buildings. Constructing buildings means that they're probably grabbing our beds from this stockpile, see, willow bed, and then hauling them down to this zone. If this seems like a lot and you have questions, feel free to ask questions down in the comments section or jump into one of my live streams. I stream at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL, and at least during the launch window, I will be streaming pretty much every day for pretty long hours. So if you have questions, feel free to jump into my streams and ask. But we've got this dormitory constructed now. We're continuing building down the way. I'm thinking we're going to kind of curve this walkway ever so little bit. You may have heard of things like fashion frame in Warframe, or fashion souls in Dark Souls, or perhaps I'm trying to think of another example. Monster Hunter has similar things. The end game of Dwarf Fortress is kind of similar. It eventually just becomes building the coolest looking fortress you possibly can. We've got this kind of nice little curve here, and we're going to probably put our kitchen and tavern in here. We're also going to need a space for bedrooms. So I'm thinking we go a little bit lower priority, because I kind of want them to just dig that hallway out. And we're going to dig another hallway similar to this one, kind of going this way. And that's going to be where we're going to put our bedrooms. So let's go right there and right there. And we're going to dig a little hallway this way. And that's going to be, once again, where we put our bedrooms. Except I kind of think I could make this look a little cooler if instead of like the other hallway, where it gets wider, I make it thinner. And then once we hit the end here, we're going to kind of do a little curve. And this is going to be where our bedrooms are going to go. Now, if you're watching, you might be like, man, that's all number 5 priority. Yeah, I know, because we're going to raise the priority for our bedrooms, because I want them to take the bedrooms out first. So even though they won't get here for a little bit, we're going to queue up these little squares. Now, bedrooms don't actually need to be that big. They just need to be big enough to fit a bed, a cabinet, and a coffer. A coffer is a stone chest. Of course, chests can be made out of metal as well. And boxes can be made out of glass, all serve the same use. The cabinet is used for keeping dwarves... the cabinet is used for keeping dwarves' clothing, which they will amass quite a lot of over time. And the coffer is used for keeping their items, such as various crafts and things that they acquire over time. Our dwarves are continuing to mine. And as you can see, the number of drink that we have has gone up. Also, if you look at this, the number of plant has dropped down to 0, which means we've probably stopped brewing, which we have. However, never fear, because we do have a good number of plump helmets already planted in our little farm right here. Now, I'm going to make a second food stockpile here, just to kind of complete this little brewing station. This is very small and will need to be expanded in the future, but I'm going to make a tiny little food stockpile here, but using the custom settings. So we're going to select food, and then I'm going to just type in plump. Okay, fine then. I will find plump helmets in here naturally then. I think it would be fruit and leaves. Oh, no, plants would be where it would be. Plump helmets. Plump, there we go. So we're going to allow plump helmets. This is just going to be a plump helmet stockpile. We don't need to do anything else fancy. That's just going to be where our brewed foods goes. So that's going to fill up as time goes by. And I think we've probably made enough beds at this point. So we're just going to stop that job for now. We're going to add a new task, and this time we're going to make wooden barrel. Oh, I was like, where did my wooden barrels job go? It actually just disappeared because they just finished the last bed job. So we're going to get that repeating now, making those. It looks like our hallway down here is almost done, and then they're going to go start working over there. Now, another thing we're going to need is we're going to need storage. So after these bedrooms are done, I'm going to do a 3 priority. So instead of digging out the rest of these walls once they've kind of gone this way, I'm going to make a 3 priority room down here, which is going to be a storage room. This is just going to be kind of a basic storage location for our dwarves. And I would very much be happy and pleased if they did that after this hallway, because, I kind of want this hallway done first. So, let's actually just zoop, 2 priority through the middle there so that they finish that first so I can queue up these doors. This is going to be a place where we're just going to chuck everything and, like I say, worry about it later. I did that at the wrong priority, but that is fine. So we'll chuck everything in there and worry about the rest later. Next thing we need to do is you'll notice there's boulders everywhere. Well, we don't really want to let those go to waste. Those are very important. So we're going to make another workshop now. We're going to make a stoneworker. Now, a stoneworker used to be called the mason shop, if you've watched older tutorials. The stoneworker is a shop that makes doors, it makes cabinets, and various other very important materials. And if you look up here, we're in mid-spring. The first trade caravan shows up just before winter entombs you, which is around fall. So we have still plenty of time before we need to worry about trading. That'll probably be in a later episode. Looks like many of our dwarves are snoozing currently, which is good. They're using the beds that I've given them. In fact, we could actually chuck a couple extra beds in here because I know that we have 7 dwarves. They tend to sleep around the same time. A day in Dwarf Fortress is about 30 seconds. You can actually watch time passing up here. So they don't actually need to sleep that much. Now, I mentioned plants earlier. Something I would like to do real quick is you see up here, there's these little plants growing, right? Some of these are edible and plenty of them are brewable. I'm just going to select this tool down here, set plant gathering, and we're just gonna kind of gather this stuff up front. Everything that gets highlighted is edible and usable. So we're gonna need to make a stockpile for just general foodstuffs in a moment for that. In fact, we might even do it up here, but I think we'll just hold off for right now because I prefer to put it close to where my kitchen's gonna be, if you know what I'm saying. So our bedrooms are continuing to get hollowed out here. Making bedrooms is a lot easier than it used to be, and even more so if you have doors. So I'm just going to real quick queue up some doors. So we have 7 dwarves right now, so I want 7 doors. Once again, there are easier ways to do this en masse, which we don't have access to yet. We'll be setting that up in the next video, focusing on management. So our Solom here is, well, I guess currently planting seeds, was making us a door. But now that we've got those done, we can queue up some smoothing. So I'm just going to say, hey guys, when you have time, please come down here and smooth up these bedrooms for us. And then you guys don't need to sleep in that dormitory anymore. Wouldn't that be a grand old thing? When they smooth walls, it makes everything look all slick and smooth and nice, and generally increases the appearance of things. However, keep in mind that smoothing is rather time intensive and should only really be done, at least initially, on higher priority locations. We are going to scroll back up and take a look at our farms, how things are going up here. So unless stuff is ready to harvest, you're not going to see it pop up. And we're into late spring. We're getting close to the next actual save spot. Still got this dwarf out here, still making wooden barrels for us. Let's take a real quick look at how many barrels they have. Wow, that's actually a lot of barrels. Sweet. So I think we can just pause that now. We need something to sell to our first round of traders. So I think it's probably a good idea for us to make something. How about we make a series of minecarts to sell? You know, minecarts are very useful, so we're going to queue up some wooden minecarts. And I'm just going to let this minecart job made out of wood repeat until the first round of traders arrive. You may also remember that there's some holes in the ceiling up here, which you can kind of see as like this faded off area. This is kind of where we dug into our first fortress. So I think we're going to quickly build some flooring over top of that. So we're going to open up the constructions menu. We're going to select floor. We're going to go over top here and just make it out of the closest material. We're not going to worry about it too much. I just really don't like the idea of there being so much open sky right next to my fortress, frankly. We can make it out of something fancier later. It's very easy to just construct over old flooring. You can also build walls on top of old flooring. Fly back down to the lower layers. We've still got plenty of drink, plenty of seeds, some meat, some fish, some plants. Doing good on food. Smoothing is beginning. And we've also got this storage area that I was talking about dug out. So we're going to make ourselves a very simple stockpile. Well, 2 of them, actually. We're going to make one here for finished. We could just say everything, but I don't want to do that. One for furniture. And then we are going to make a second one right next to it for finished goods, which are 2 of the things that you start off with a bunch of. So finished goods is just kind of like clothing. It's various bits and pieces of crafted items. So we're going to quickly, where's finished goods? There it is. We're going to plop one there and one there. And then we need to do that food stockpile that I keep on saying I'm going to do and then not doing. We could actually put a food stockpile kind of in the corner over here, which might not be a bad place for it. So let's just post a food stockpile right up here, right next to where we're currently meeting in our temporary tavern anyway, or tavern zone, I suppose. And food. Perfect. Although we're going to jump into here, and once you've selected the overall option, it gives you all of this. Now, remember how we made a stockpile for seeds? Well, in our other food stockpiles, we don't want seeds. So I'm actually going to go here and I'm going to remove seeds. We did also make a specific stockpile on the surface, on that surface layer for plump helmets. It's okay if plump helmets end up in both. Dwarves will just be eating those like food anyway. We also will notice here we've got some notifications going on. We've got a fancy masterpiece willow bed. we've also got a dwarf that has become better at being a carpenter. We got a couple jobs canceled, but those are fine because, you know, we ran out of drink. And we've struck pink jade and jet and some picture jasper. Look at that. And it's still raining. Such is the life of a temperate zone, you know? Now, you might be like, where did all the dwarves go? Well, they're moving items for us. If we actually look at this, as you can see, oops, nope, that's Y, the hotkey that I hit. Everybody's storing stuff in stockpiles and harvesting plants, which is very good. That's what we want. So let's actually just follow this dwarf while they put stuff away. I really hope that this tutorial series or like newbie-friendly Let's Play series has been helpful so far. It's just a kind of big reminder for everybody. The more you read about your dwarves and the more you pay attention to your dwarves, the more you'll get out of Dwarf Fortress, because it is primarily a story generation game. I recommend reading as much as possible, as often as possible, including things like, this dwarf feels gratitude upon receiving water. Why in the world did you receive water? That's horrific. I'm so sorry. Hope you're okay. But was euphoric due to inebriation, which is good, but he's out in the rain. That's annoying. But, you know, he's still getting by, still a perfectionist, and, you know, he tends to assume the worst of two outcomes will be the one that comes to pass. The game is saving. Don't mind the overlap here. He chews his lips when he gets excited, and he needs alcohol to get through the working day, and he likes working outdoors, but only grumbles mildly at crappy weather. We're now just going to let the game finish saving, which does take a little bit. By the way, in the settings menu, you can change the frequency at which it saves. I really like having seasonal saving on, but you can also do annual saving, or you could just simply live life dangerously and never save. These are all completely valid options. There we go. So now the game is up and running again. The dwarves are running back and forth and desperately putting everything away into these stockpiles. Now, this is our stoneworkers workshop where we built a bunch of doors earlier. I could actually just get some doors repeating, but before I do that, I want to make table. We're going to make table times 2. Maybe times 3. And we're going to make throne times 4. We're going to make 4 thrones. And the reason for this is we're about to set up our first manager. And we need thrones to set up our first manager because they need an office. And an office, believe it or not, in Dwarf Fortress only needs a chair. Doesn't need anything else, just a chair, which is kind of horrific as somebody who works with his lovely standing desk. So, from here, we are now going to just type in door and just get a little repeating job going for doors. We're also going to start assigning these doorways to these soon-to-be lovely little bedrooms. And we do have actually 3 bedrooms that are ready to go. They're fully smoothed and they now have doors. So what we're going to do is we are going to jump over to the furniture screen and we are going to place beds into these 3 rooms. And now you see that there's beds in there. The game's quite smart. We're going to click on the zone screen, grab bedroom, click, drag, boom. The game detects that there are bedrooms that are here. Well, actually, sorry. We have to set them to... let me try this again. We're going to click on the bedroom screen, and we're going to click on multi-bedroom. So we can click paint or multi. That's the part that I messed up. If we type in multi-bedroom, it'll recognize that it's 3 separate bedrooms, and this one is not a bedroom, rather than making one big bedroom, which is what I just did. And then when we click done, bang, look at that. 3 separate bedrooms. The dwarves will assign themselves to it as they see the beds and as they need to sleep. And once we have enough beds set up for all these dwarves, we can then remove these, and they will move in here and be quite happy in their new spaces. However, they still will want cabinets and chests, but we can get to that. Initially, all you really need is a door and a bed. And once again, they can be half the size of this if you would like, or even just a single tile if you really want to be kind of brutal to your poor dwarves. We have quivers, we have crutches, we have splints, we have a set of mine carts that I asked my dwarves very kindly to make. We're still working towards it, still making good progress, I think. Let's, checking drinks. We've got a good number of drinks. So as this dwarf begins to make thrones, see, they're powering through everything nice and quick. We're going to let them repeat some door jobs for a little bit, and then I'm going to be setting up a repeating blocks job. Blocks take a boulder and transfer it into 4 blocks, which you can use to make brick constructions way quicker because they're so much lighter than the heavy blocks. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to increase the priority of digging out this area right here. Let's do that. And then down here, we are going to queue up what is going to be our kitchen/tavern. So we're going to set this to number 3 priority, I think. And we're just going to kind of go here. Here. Whoopsies, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's just erase that. real quick before the dwarves jump over to that. Let's just leave the game paused while we do this for my own sanity's sake. And we're going to queue up a space for my tavern. Now, it doesn't actually matter how big you make these taverns, as I mentioned previously, but if they have about 5 by 5, then you'll start seeing things like dancing, which is generally a positive thing, and you want to see your dwarves happy and dancing and telling poetry and all that. And then I like to set up some kitchens right next door, so I'm going to make a small space here for kitchens, and also maybe actually just make it a little bigger so that I can cram a food stockpile in there. Now, we're going to give you a door here and there, and a door there. Now, they should finish up those bedrooms after this is done, at least for the dwarves that mine. We're going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to make... actually, I can zoom out a little bit. And we're going to make up this last bedroom. So, let's drop you in right here, and go here. Furniture, bed, thunk, right there. Perfect. And then we can queue up this last bedroom, which I don't need to set to multi. We can just do a single one. And bang, done. So a dwarf will come and claim that. So if we look at these dwarves now, or this one in particular, skills rooms, this dwarf has a modest quarters. So this is considered to be a modest quarters. And this dwarf doesn't feel anything after sleeping in a very good bedroom. Doesn't feel anything at work. Doesn't feel... Wow, you feelingless, strange dwarf. Interesting. So different colors of items are based on the material that they are. So the color of the material used impacts the color of the item that you get out of it. Now you can see this dwarf here carving out our soon-to-be kitchens. Zoom back up to the surface and kind of peek around up here and say, we're into early summer. We need to think about trading. So we are going to next build a trade depot. Very easy to construct. Just select the trade depot, pick what material you want to make it out of. In this case, we're just going to make it out of wood because it's nice and close by and we have a lot of it. Uh-oh, something got bloody there. Grey Langer blood. Huh? Uh-oh, I missed combat. Grey Langer is fighting with what? One of my stonecrafters? Who won? Monkeys. Okay, are they still on the map? I don't see a dead Grey Langer and I also don't see a dead dwarf. So, others. What's going on? Grey Langers. Well, they appear to just be kind of running around doing monkey things, meaning they might come back. We have to be careful. Those things can steal an anvil. They're no joke. We need more equipment stockpiles, I think. Let's just expand this room down here a little bit. Because since we got Grey Langers about, I really don't want them to run off with something important. But fortunately for us, we do have several methods of keeping our stuff safe, and the most important one is just simply putting it where they can't get to it. So earlier, I built a bunch of doors. We're actually just going to, real quick, put a pillar right here. And we're not going to use closest material, actually. And we are going to door up the front door. Now, this is very important. You always want to have a front door to your house. Same in Dwarf Fortress. You always want to have a front door for your fort. Now, doors require, cannot be built 2 in a row or 3 in a row. They can only be built up to 2 in a row, and they need to be connected to a wall. So I'm just going to chuck that in the middle so we don't have too much extra space lying around. We're not getting as much done in this episode as I wanted to, but such is the way of things with Dwarf Fortress. You never quite know what's going to happen. We're now going to quickly throw down a chair. Remember how earlier I was mentioning we needed an office for our manager? Well, we're going to build a chair there. And then in the next episode, we will be kind of diving into what you can do with the manager screen to a degree. Remember how we've been clicking on all these things manually? In fact, we don't actually need that many more doors. Let's close that, cancel the last of the door making task, and get this throne placed. Then we're going to go into the zones screen once again, and we're going to make an office. Once we've made this office, it's going to be assigned to a dwarf. As for which dwarf, that part doesn't matter so much. It's mostly up to who you like. So we're going to assign a dwarf to this office. I'm going to assign Datan, our expedition leader. Now Datan, because Datan has been mining, is probably quite busy. So we're going to open up the labor screen by pressing Y on the keyboard. We're actually going to remove Datan from mining. And we are going to give somebody else mining. Maybe this little fisher dwarf here, because, you know, honestly, fishing is great, but we need you to be a little bit more useful with your time, dwarf. So, now that we have the office set up, we can press N to open up the nobles screen. Or, alternatively, we can click on this little crown down here. Now, the nobles screen, this is how you assign dwarves of importance to your fort. Now, a lot of people in older Dwarf Fortress memes will scream things like, oh, kill your nobles, blah, 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 because they demand things. This is true. However, nobles are very important. Eventually, you will have a mayor in your fortress. Not only is the mayor a source of guidance in your fortress, they do request items in a fancier bedroom. However, your mayor, once they're elected when you hit 50 dwarves, provides a very important service. The dwarves are allowed to go scream at them, which actually calms them down and relieves a lot of stress. Very important for dwarven society to have members of higher society. But for this dwarf is going to be assigned as our manager. So we're going to give it to the expedition leader. We're also going to assign them as a broker. The broker is the dwarf that handles trading. And as you can see, this dwarf now requires an office, a meager study specifically, which we've already assigned in that chair. And then we are going to also assign this dwarf to broker, like I said, and also bookkeeper. Now, bookkeeper is an interesting job, which basically no other game that I'm aware of has. Bookkeeper is what gives you access to your full inventory. And instead of having these approximate estimates of various items, we will have exact counts of our items. As for the broker assesses the value of our items. And as the broker trades with various caravans, they will gain brokerage skill and appraisal skill so that we know how much our stuff is worth and eventually will get us better prices. Lastly, our manager allows us to automate jobs, right up to if-then statements if you wanted to simply program your fortress into playing itself. It's quite wide in the amount of mechanics you'll have access to. But for this particular episode, the last thing that we are going to do is I'm going to press U and open up this unit screen again, and we're going to click Work Orders. Since we have a manager, we can click this button over here on the right, and we are going to type in rock block. Literally any item that's constructible in the game is available through these screens. You can filter by specific workshop, or you can simply search all of them, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm going to say make rock blocks. How many rock blocks do we want to make, do you say? Well, we can increase it one by one by clicking on this. We can also say, oh, only specific workshops can do this job, but we only have one, so it's not an issue. Or I can click on this number. We can simply type in 100. And this can be done for drinks. This can be done for any crafts. This can be done for quite literally anything. And now if we click this button, we can be specific about the type of material we use. And if we want to be even more specific, we can make rock blocks when we run low. So they have suggested conditions here for the conditions on this order. Say you only want to make certain number of blocks per month, or you only want to make blocks when you have less than 100 in your stockpiles. Maybe you just want to keep making them forever with no real logic or safety behind it, and the inevitable expectation of your fortress crumbling under the weight of piles and piles of bricks in your stockpiles. This gives you a lot of power, so I recommend that you explore these conditions at least a little bit once you get into Dwarf Fortress. But that brings us to the end of part 2 of this beginner-friendly Let's Play. We still have a lot to cover, and there will be a number of episodes left. If you've enjoyed this series so far, give this channel a subscription. There's tons of tutorials and various quick tips videos and ideas and things that you can do in Dwarf Fortress on this channel. And if you like the sound of my voice or want to see my face while I play video games on the internet, go to twitch.tv/BLINDIRL to watch me play video games live. A whole lot of Dwarf Fortress, but also some other things too. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.